and we're talking about.
We are live coast to coast here with Dr. Sal. Dr. Sal joins us back here on our big broadcast, and he is amazing. I love having him on because he is a common sense kind of guy. There's not too many of them left. Sir, you should be at a museum somewhere because there's not too many of you left running around out here.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
I had a
how
friend
are
who
you?
would tell me that the most uncommon commodity is common sense. So I took that to heart decades ago.
Decades ago. That is awesome. We have got Dr. Sal with us today. He joins us live here on our big broadcast. And the Men's Health Network is a national nonprofit organization whose mission is to reach men, boys, and their families where they live, work, play, and pray with health awareness, disease prevention, messages and tools, screening programs, educational materials, advocacy opportunities, and patient navigation. And you have had just a heck of a career. What, like 40 plus years or something doing this, man? You are very well traveled, Dr. Sal.
Well, thank you. They just can't be rid of me. That's the
They
problem.
just can't get rid of
They
you.
can't get rid of me.
That is amazing. That is amazing. So, one of the things that I wanted to have you on today to talk about, because there's a heck of a lot going on, but one of the things that um, I had seen, it just seems like this is just something that happens constantly, is we always have all this violence all over the place. And part of the thing is I remember years ago when I was told by my mother, don't watch too much, you know, crazy TV and horrific this and horrific that because you'll become desensitized to it. It was always the thing. And I didn't believe her at the time, but son of a bitch, here we are. It seems like people are just desensitized to horrific murders. Uh, there's all these shocking videos on the internet. I remember the big thing there for a while was Charlie Kirk's assassination. Oh my God, we got to have this. Wait, there's a better camera angle, and I'm like, no, no, there's not a better camera angle, and it just feels like there's all these issues. Um, Doctor, when we see these shocking videos or we hear about some of these violent crimes almost daily, it seems many people feel numb from just the public health and the psychological perspective. Are we truly becoming desensitized to violence? Break this down for us, Doctor.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mom was right, and more right than she probably would have known. We've had some very interesting information, data that's been confirmed over and over again that it's not just psychological numbness, but it's also physiologic numbness. Many people, particularly runners or others, will understand the connection between dopamine receptors in the brain, which
Yep.
are essentially a neurotransmitter receptor in the brain that gives us pleasurable content, pleasurable feeling. One of the reasons that runners just love running is because it activates the dopamine receptor. Dopamine receptors are also very much involved in obsessive compulsive behavior, such as
Yep.
overeating, gambling, hypersexuality, and attractiveness to violence. So, one of the things that we see over and over again in studies that started to become published in the 60s and 70s, the 1960s and 1970s on neurotransmitter was that constant viewing of graphic violence increased dopamine receptor activity. We could actually start to measure that. And one of the things with dopamine receptor activity, and that's why runners need to start off with a half a mile. If you could go that far, maybe a quarter mile, and work your way up to 10-mile runs, is because they need more and more of the dopamine receptor mediated or dopamine receptor activated response to pleasure.
Yep.
Same with graphic violence, I'm afraid. Same with so many of the other obsessive compulsive behaviors, including, by the way, overeating. So there is an actual physiologic component to why individuals who get gratification or excitement to hyper aggressive behavior, graphic violence, need more and more and more subject to it. There's also psychological components. And then the
Yes.
last is the habituation. We would rarely see this level of graphic violence in TV in the 50s and 60s. I would always watch Superman programs, and you never really saw blood and guts in those. There were many
Yeah.
series of programs where it was a policy, both from the network standpoint and the production standpoint, not to show too much graphic blood and gore. Now we have it, unfortunately, in everything from the newscasts, which they've thankfully pulled back on, to video games. So, particularly for young individuals, the video games that show all this gore, even though it's essentially animated gore, it still has that psychological impact of habituation. The other thing that happens is it dehumanizes the victims. When we watch these
Yes.
video representations of blood and gore, which most people say they hardly ever see it live, they're hardly ever there. The experience of being there and seeing someone's innards laid out bare on the sidewalk is very different than watching a graphic representation of it or an animatic representation of it. So this exposure to constant images also dehumanizes individuals, which leads to another component, which is when I see this kind of violence, I don't think of it as affecting an individual. I think of it as affecting a character in a movie, in a cartoon, in an anime. So it's a very rich constellation of all bad stuff.
We have got a great guest with us today. Dr. Sal joins us here on our big broadcast, talking a little bit about are people becoming desensitized because of all this horrific murder and violence that people are watching on TV and the internet and everything. So, how does repeated exposure to violent media, whether through news, social media, entertainment, affect the human brain's empathy response?
Well, when you tend to not view the subjects of these uber violent or ultra violent acts as people, which is easy enough to do if you're constantly exposed, you constantly need more, and you are seeing them as caricatures rather than people, you desensitize to the fact that it's doing actual harm. And video games are I think, one of the, unfortunately, the epitomization of it because it not only dehumanizes the subject, but it also encourages you to engage in make believe violence for the purposes of entertainment. So when we see these things now, we are desensitized to the fact that there are huge consequences to the maiming or death of an individual. I've read various reports. I don't know where the actual truth is that with every individual who suffers a violent death or a catastrophic physical catastrophe, there are anywhere between 7 and 25 other individuals that are directly involved in a very difficult psychological, personal, sorrowful way. And we lose sight of that fact. Can you imagine someone really understanding that and still wanting to play a graphic game where you kill someone, an animated someone, every 20 seconds to get points? No,
Yeah.
it's antithetical to humanism.
It is absolutely amazing. We have got Dr. Sal with us today, and he's with us today discussing this incredible situation that we're seeing, which is basically people becoming desensitized to horrific murders. And I want to get Dr. Sal on today to talk about this. So, has technology and the 24-hour news cycle fundamentally changed the way people process tragedy? Because it seemed like, especially like with the Charlie Kirk situation, he died on a Tuesday. He got assassinated on a Tuesday. There was people were grieving on Wednesday, and then all of a sudden Thursday it was like, oh, we got another big crisis, and I'm like, Dude just got assassinated in front of the whole goddamn world. And you guys are moving on to, oh my God, McDomy in New York is in the head of the polls. I'm like, what? Break it down for us, Dr. Sal. You're the expert, baby.
Well, there is unfortunately a link between constant exposure and the quote, no end in sight to this sort of thing, and its effect on moroseness, depression, anxiety, and again, I'm afraid, desensitization to the harsh, true reality of violence. Now, look, the humanity, unfortunately, has never been humane to other humans. You go
Yeah,
back to to Rome.
you're right about that.
I was watching specials on the Roman Empire, which I'm fascinated with, and the amount of public executions and violence and gore was an everyday occurrence there. You look into the 1600s and the 15 and the 18 1900s and even the early part of the middle part of the 20th century, I should say, with war correspondence and showing things. But it was never as prolific as it is now with the advent of not only the 24/7 news cycle and broadcast media, but also the 24/7 nonstop ability to access these sorts of things at any point in time. We're deluged with it. So for some people, it becomes essentially white space, like that terrible television commercial for that product that you just can't understand, that you see 17 times an hour, but you tune it out after the second hour of listening. But unfortunately, for some individuals, they that becomes an alternative reality to them. They can't separate the repeated views of the same sorts of blood and gore from the state of the world. And it does lead to tremendous problems with substance abuse disorder, a feeling of moroseness, a feeling of helplessness and hopelessness, anxiety and depression. And we're seeing that, we saw that very acutely during COVID when there was, quote, no end in sight to this terrible stuff. And that was
Yes.
a lot of terrible depression from even otherwise well balanced individuals. So it is a very big problem, and the news will always be there. So my best advice to people who are feeling this: turn it down, turn it off, change the channel.
Yeah.
You still have that power in the electronic era.
You know, I had to have that conversation with a with our buddy Roger Homefield on Sunday, because he was telling me that he was seeing all this craziness and there was all these things going on, and he just didn't know what to do with his life. And I said, here's what you should do: shut the TV off and go play softball. He's a huge softball guy. He's on like all these different teams down there in Florida. I'm like, go take batting practice. Shut the
Absolutely,
TV off and go take batting practice, baby.
absolutely.
So
Or change the channel and watch something that's fun. I see a lot of that.
that too, I've seen
But
that too.
I love science fiction, but there's no fun science fiction anymore.
Oh
They like
no.
the uber
Oh
violence.
God. Wait. Now,
Yeah,
now that I know you like science fiction, we will have to have conversations sometime about the current state of Star Trek and Star Wars. But go ahead, Dr. Sal.
I roll my eyes. It's not a medical issue, but it certainly is an important sociological one.
We have got Dr. Sal with us today. He is amazing. We are going to try to, that would be a fun conversation sometime. We'll just have Dr. Sal on and we'll talk about Star Trek and Star Wars. That would be we could do an hour on that.
You
Uh,
certainly could.
the role of society and culture here with Dr. Sal. Now, we've seen online reactions to some of these violent acts basically become detached, even humorous. What does this say about the cultural coping mechanisms today?
Yeah, your mom gave you really good advice, and she was interested enough and engaged enough in what you were doing to give you that advice.
Yes. And
One of
I didn't take it. And
well,
I probably should have.
you must have taken a little bit of it because now you're
Yeah.
questioning it and you have the foresight to want to put it on your program and dedicate some
Yeah.
time to discussing it because you see it as a social problem. So mom had her impact. And a lot of times folks say, well, what do I do about it? There is no secret to this. You need to be engaged with your children. You need to watch what they are watching. You need to have conversations with them about what they're watching. Now, I remember as a young kid, I used to love to watch Superman and Zorro and everything else. And, either my mom or my dad would sit down and say, you really can't fly. And I say, yeah, I know. And they were a grounding effort to say, that, to show that there are some things that are fantasy, and that's okay. We need flights of fantasy, and certainly science fiction are flights of fantasy that can be healthy or not healthy. But parents need to watch. A gentleman was asking me the other day, said, "What should I do?" My 14-year-old daughter sees all these news reports, and it's all over the airways about the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Should I let her watch it? And we discussed it, and I said, "Look, you're a lucky guy because your daughter asked you what your opinion was, looking for guidance. A lot of children don't ask and look for guidance, but virtually all of them need guidance. So be engaged, watch what they're watching. You don't have to go so far as to tell them not to, because the minute you tell a 14, 15, or 17-year-old not to, guess where they're going? So I think it's far better to watch it with them or ask them, well, what did you think about it? Be very much in tune, not just with the words that they tell you, but with their body language. Also, keep close tabs and be friends with their friends. One of the ways to have an understanding of what this fantasy world, these 24/7 images that could be unhealthy and dangerous to particularly young people, is to know their friends. And it also is seen in older individuals who may be homebound, who can't get out as much. They are just as fascinated. They want to keep touch with the world, but they too are attracted to these things. So another thing that parents and loved one for older individuals, if you happen to be part of the sandwich generation, where you're watching young kids and old folks, is make friends with their friends, and you'll see subtle clues to changes in behavior, changes in attitude, changes to how they dress, and those are clues that you may need to have a conversation.
We have got a great guest with us today. Dr. Sal joins us here on our big broadcast. And do you believe the normalization of graphic imagery has blurred moral and emotional boundaries, particularly among younger generations, Doctor?
Well, yes, the morals now for what is acceptable, I think in many cases send a chill up my old spine. When I see some of the things that I see, because it's part of my work and how to keep au courant on trends and uh, what people are thinking about psychologically, physiologically, I am aghast at how the shock value of imagery, verbiage, and a moral uh, compass has shifted. Now, some of it isn't necessarily bad. The moral compass should change with society, but I think that there is too many things online, in particular, and too many places online that harbor too many dark events that erode the moral compass. And one of the difficulties is that there is, particularly for younger individuals, and again, older individuals, I put them sort of in the same category, vulnerable people to not being around in society, is that you're taken outside of the context of being with other people. When I was a kid, we would play stickball in the streets of Queens, dodging cars and having a good time. We were out camping with scouts. We were out doing things as families. You don't have those opportunities anymore. So the moral that you see in television is moderated by being with real people. Same for older individuals. You don't get out anymore, so the moral compass shifts that you see portrayed in media are not counterbalanced by being with other people. So families out there, whether you're taking care of an older person or a younger person, get them out. As I said, it's very different when you see someone who cuts their fingers carving a wood chip on a Boy Scout knife, and that really helps you understand what empathy is and how hurtful things can be, as opposed to you get less of a reaction now when you're watching a video game where people are shooting individuals. So being with people, healthy people, is a good moderator of what we see in the media.
We have got a great guest with us today. Dr. Sal joins us here on our big broadcast. So, what role does a healthy male emotional expression play in combating some of this societal numbness to suffering?
It is a problem for guys. Unfortunately, men from a very early age are acculturated to not talk about uh, the horrors that they see. They're not acculturated to ask for help in understanding how things they see trouble them. They hold it in, hold it in, hold it in, and just like holding in any sort of unbridled emotion without an outlet, without someone to talk with, can be very injurious to your soul, to your heart, to your psychology. Women are much better at having groups that they feel free and able to talk with about things that bother them. Men, not so much. Some people feel that men are emotionless. That's totally wrong. It's just men express their emotions, their emotional hurt, their fears, their the things that disgust them. They don't. They're not encouraged to talk about them, and then they show them in different ways, more physical ways, withdrawal, sometimes violence, pulling back in school, in particular, not paying attention in school or being disruptive, having disruptive behavior. Those are all signs of problems. So, we have to, as and parents, have to understand that boys have emotions. I feel it's somehow inconsistent that some of the greatest poets, greatest songwriters, greatest actors are male, but we also don't give men credit for having the ability to express emotions when they write beautiful songs, write beautiful poetry, and act in beautiful ways. That's all shows folks who think men don't have emotions that they do. They just express it differently. So read up on how to take emotional cues from the guys in your lives. There's plenty of good stuff out there on the internet, some bad too, but you go to Cleveland Clinic, Mayo Clinic, Men's Health Network, you'll find good information about those sort of things, about emotional clues to emotional distress in men and boys.
Fantastic. Well, Dr. Sal, I appreciate you making time for us today. Before we let you
Sure.
go, how do we get in touch with you on social media and the websites and everywhere else?
Well, you can go to www.menshealthnetwork.org. There's lots of good information there, uh, particularly in mental health, stability, emotional health in men, and physical health, because you can't dissociate mental and physical health. They're intertwined.
Fantastic. Well, Dr. Sal, thanks for doing this, brother. I really appreciate it, my friend.
My pleasure, and I look forward to having a conversation with you about Star Trek then and Star Trek now and
Yes,
Star
yes.
Trek in the 25th century.
I am going to get in touch with your booker and we are going to get you back on and we're going to discuss that.
All righty.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.